AI, the thing pretty much used now to just send emails, should it be in video games? There's been a lot of debate in this space, and I just want to make a video and talk about it. I'm not going to talk about the environmental issues just because I don't know enough about it, to be honest. So I just really want to just talk about video games because that's all we do here, and just, yeah, I'm going to avoid all the politics and any side of it. So yes and no. I'm very split on whether it should be in video games, and I'll tell you why. I think there is a case for it to be used, and again, when we're avoiding the environmental impacts and those sort of things, I think there's a case for it to be used in games. For instance, if you're a small developer or even a medium developer and you're making a massive game and you need to render different sides of concrete wall, and you feed an image into, you may have made 20 images, but you need 100. Here's 20 images as a baseline for different cracks in concrete walls. Can you bring back 100? So someone doesn't spend an entire day making cracks in concrete walls to issue, an area that may be worn-torn. I see that as a perfect use case for AI. That's the way that I don't make anything creatively with AI, but for me, I use it as spell check on steroids. That's probably the best way to use it. Whenever I'm writing something and it's not sounding right, I can shoot into that and it'll spit up something back out. I can also say, hey, I've written this, and can you reword it for someone at this level? And it's really, really good at doing that. What AI, I think, isn't great at is creating things from scratch. I think that's where it really misses the mark. And I think creatively, it's going to be the same thing. There's video games now that are out that are 100% AI. They're pretty much, one of them's a Minecraft clone. What it does is it takes everything it sees and just kind of makes another version of it. It can't create its own. In any case, it can't create on its own. It needs to be able to take images and source material and kind of just make a version of that, predicting what you kind of want to see. It's not much better than what language models were in the past, and this is both in the language side of things and when it comes to art, in that it's just trying to predict what the next word should be in a sentence or the next image should be in a string. That's why I think it would be very good for very basic grunt work when it comes to art development. Now there would be a case that, hey, some intern should be doing that then can learn. And I think that those are the jobs that are most going to go away, and I'm already seeing that in the workplace. I don't know about video games, but I'm already starting to see that those real entry-level roles are much, much harder to get into because it's not about learning on the job. You almost need to have impact straight away, which is impossible when you just come out of university or do this yourself. But that's where I see it can work is a space where you just feed it some of your own images and just say, hey, can you make, different blades of grass? So the game seems much more in depth and has a much more impact because even to the minute detail, there's so many different, plant varieties and so many different, blades of grass and different concrete slabs and all these different things. And it's a good way to just kind of fill out the game that I would say isn't ultimately necessarily, but it is nice to have those detail points and that you're not seeing repeats of things like you saw in games back in the 90s. And that's another case why games take so much longer now to build than the 90s, is they cheated a lot in the 90s. They cheated a lot in the noughties. They doubled up images, where now it seems like there's a need for everything to be its own wall, its own everything. You can't just double up necessarily. So I can see it working in that space. Where I can see it being a big problem, and this is where I'm really worried, like you're seeing articles with like Microsoft and Sony saying we're all in on AI, and all these big companies all in on AI. Why? Because it doesn't cost them anywhere near as much as it does staff members. And I'm talking C-level staff. I've been to lots of conferences where everyone's talking about AI and losing jobs in that middle management area because of AI. And it's starting to be recommended for game studios to use AI, and this is going to be a problem where they say, that they're going to start taking developers away in these big studios and putting AI in there. Where I see it being a big problem is, I don't know if you remember, there was that Bungie issue with Marathon where some of the art was stolen. You're going to see way more of that if AI is using it, or at least it might not be stolen, but it'll be, pretty much taken, have a small little change to it, and then just shoved into games. And, that artist is then not being paid. It's very different for an artist to make maybe 20 images and then say, hey, can you make me 100 with these 20 images concepts? At least someone is getting paid for that work, and then some of the grunt work's being taken out of it. But if it's just being stolen from that person from the internet, to make much bigger models and much bigger parts of the game. That's where I see it being a real problem. The other thing is, I'm less concerned with this, but I think a lot of people on the internet aren't, is that the games are going to be quite bad. They're not going to be bought then. So that's my thing. Like if EA or Xbox or Sony go down the route of, hey, here's this AI slop, it's just going to be slop. We get slop now. We get, regenerated garbage from the industry just trying to steal things from other games and put into that with nothing new and independent about a new game. So we get that already. So I don't think it's really going to affect it in that way. I just think, people will vote with their feet on that space. But I just don't think AI, at least in the anytime soon, I don't think it'll ever get there, at least in the next 10 years, where it can actually create something on its own and make that engaging. I just don't think it'll ever get there, because what it does is it just predicts the next thing that you might want to see, or the next word in a language model, and it just kind of grabs that from other places. So it can't really say this is the next best thing in gaming, this is going to be the next, this is going to be battle royales, or this is going to be this. It won't know what to do with that, because it doesn't have all the other media and all the other experience that it can draw from to say, like, oh, this could work, this could do this. And the whole like copying things too, like I see a lot of people up in arms about, it's stealing ideas from the internet. I do that. You do that. That's human beings do that. We get inspired by other things. This YouTube channel, since we've been live in April, has changed a bit because we see what other people do and we go, oh, that's a good little idea. I'm going to take that little thing. There's a good little way to end a video. There's a good way to start a video. Maybe we should be asking more questions. Those sort of things that you get inspiration from. It goes from everywhere. You might watch a movie and, and then someone goes, this would be a very good idea for a game, and then makes a game that isn't exactly that world. It's not the world of the movie, but the general concept has been taken from there. So stealing happens all the time. But music's a prime example. Instead of saying it's stolen, it's inspired by. So it happens everywhere, but it's just a launching pad, and then things get better and better and better as you go along. Where I think AI, the problem is it just seems to regurgitate the same thing. It doesn't expand on. It doesn't bring 5 different concepts together. It just tries to just rattle in what might be the next word in the sentence. So but where I am worried is that it is going to start to be used more, and we're going to start to see it in video games, and it's going to be stealing jobs. That's where my biggest concern is with it. And like I said, I don't mind if it is just taking like real grunt work, because that's what it's meant to do. That's what AI is meant to do. It is meant to be the next tool in the evolution. I'm kind of hoping that we're in the middle point of AI and not dead at the start. It's not like Napster, for instance, which was kind of, I think, the real, for those that don't know, Napster was an internet download place for music. But that really did instigate everything that happened then from the internet. And now you've got like Spotify, for instance, and all these chains from the internet era don't exist anymore. Video stores, the way you travel. Travel agents used to be the biggest thing in the world. Then they're nowhere near as big now. Shopping, the retail space has completely changed from the internet. I'm hoping AI doesn't have such a revolution that I think a lot of people are looking at. Smartphones is another one that's probably, a big revolution, probably the last one that we've had. So I'm hoping it's probably a bit more of a functionality situation like it was with smartphones than the internet, where it completely changed everything. Where smartphones is probably more an adaptation and an improvement on things that we already had to make our lives easier and to have everything in one place. I'm hoping AI is like the next run in that technologically, because we haven't really had anything new since 2010. So I'm hoping it's more that route, and we're kind of in the middle space. We're not at the Napster area where it's like, oh boy, we've got 25 more years of the internet before we really find out where. And now it's plateaued. I think we've got everything that we can from it. Not that it's gone away, but I think everything's just plateaued. We've just gotten used to everything, streaming services, all those sort of things. I kind of hope we're in the middle of AI now, where it is kind of like, we're starting to get all these tools and all these things come out that is just going to make our lives easier. And some people are going to try push it to the nth degree, as they did with every new technology. It's going to fail, and then everyone's going to kind of head back, especially when you start to get lawsuits in video games, because it's like, hey, that is directly the thing that I drew, and AI's just taken it and maybe changed one thing. You'll start to see a lot of that. And then, once you get that, then people, a lot of companies, especially if a lawsuit does go through about art, you see a lot of companies go, no, you cannot use AI, at least in that sense, where it takes things externally. You might be able to do an internal lockdown AI where it's like, hey, yep, here's 20 images of a computer screen. We need a bunch more because we have an Office game. So yeah, like I'm just spitballing here, but obviously that's the way that I can see AI being used, just to take out that real boring grunt work. Because yeah, our brains are very different now. No one really wants to do the boring work anymore. Like if I'm to quantify that a little bit, we went on a coast trip about 2 weeks ago, and we're down there for 3 days, and it wasn't the best internet, those sort of things, and they had a TV, so I had to watch just regular TV. My life growing up was just watching regular TV. I never thought it was slow. I never thought it was, the wrong way of doing things. I could barely get through an hour. Because my brain is so fundamentally changed from the way we do things now. I just thought it was so slow. It was just all over the place. You couldn't search what you wanted. It was just kind of what was given to you. So I just think it didn't really work. And our brains have kind of got that way with work and everything, that things are starting to be more automated for us and things are starting to be a bit quicker. So taking out some of that grunt work so people can create and make amazing things, I see that as a positive. And I'm really hoping there isn't a backlash because someone's made, a couple of textures in a game with AI, because, again, environmental and all the other stuff aside, I'm hoping it's not like, well, hey, they used it on carpet textures. Okay, that's not really needed. They can then do something bigger and make the game better with that free time because they've saved weeks or days on really basic small stuff. And then, yeah, again, you might say like, well, someone coming in doesn't get to learn that, but they might not need to. It might not be the thing that they'll do as much, so then they can then work on bigger things or maybe create their own stuff. So yeah, I think we're just really in that weird bubble and we're not really sure where it's going to go. But I think a lot of people are worried about AI games. They won't do well. That's pretty much my point. They won't do well. Anyway, I'm curious on your thoughts. It's the end of the video. Anyway, I was just, like I said, curious on your thoughts, so comment down below. Hit the subscribe button because we are a little channel and we just make videos like this. We also do game reviews and gameplay sessions, which we're going to start up again. We'll do that with my brother, who's also on the channel. But yeah, he broke his shoulder, so he's been out of action for a little bit. But yeah, we got a lot of game reviews coming up, and a lot of play sessions and a lot of news videos. We're pretty much doing a video a day. So if that interests you, hit the subscribe button because that helps us out. And the like button also really helps us out. I know everyone says hit like and subscribe at the end of videos. If you're a small channel, we're a very small channel, very small engagement increases goes a long way on everything. Like it can even, liking these videos can mean other people go and then they might look at some of our other videos and like them, and then it snowballs again and everything gets another second wave, and we've seen that happen a few times. So it really does go a long way and we do appreciate it here. So yeah, so thanks for that. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna cut this up and get on out of here. This is pretty much just a rant and a ramble about AI in games, just because I've seen so many articles about it. I think it was the alters that had a bit of backlash because it had 2 textures and they forgot that it was even in there. They're like placeholder textures and everyone was like, we need to boycott it. And I was like, that's a bit rough. I remember at the time that was a bit rough, but yeah, I've just done a bit more research into it and I don't know. I just think it's okay. Like I said, for me, the way I use it with my actual job is that it is spell check on steroids. And I think that's but I just use language models. I don't use it to create anything. I find anyone that makes it into art or music is probably someone that can't create in the first place. And it's not very good. And I don't think it is going to get good. I don't think it's going to have that ability to just know what is going to be big and what's catchy and what's happening in the zeitgeist, because it doesn't have that social interaction. It doesn't have that part of the brain. It just kind of listens to everything online. I find AI really doesn't get humor, subtleties of humor, and I think it's, as someone that's done stand-up and really nerds out over comedy, I think there'll be someone that's a musician that would be like, it doesn't understand the subtleties of music. I think it's that with every single creative journey. So yeah, I'm still rambling here. Anyway, I'm going to edit this up, cut this up, and get on out of here. So thank you so much for watching. My name is Brenton. I'm going to edit this up, and bye.